We live in a strange time, friends, where empathy of all things gets a bad rap and has this negative connotation. I mean, what happened? In Matthew 14, when Jesus looked out on the crowds that had listened to him teach and preach all day, what does it say? It says he had compassion for them. And so what does Jesus do? He feeds them. And then in chapter 20, as he's leaving Jericho, he sees two blind men. They're sitting on the side of the road. And the crowds, what do? They say, ignore him. Ignore these guys. But Jesus, again, is moved with compassion. And what does he do? He returns their sight. Earlier in chapter 9, we're told that Jesus can't help but see with compassion everybody that he encounters as he's going from city to city to city. Because as Jesus says, they're harassed. They're helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. And he goes on and he says, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few, so pray that God send more laborers out there. Throughout Luke's gospel, we can see Jesus' compassion on full display, especially for the poor and the outcast and the marginalized. I mean, in chapter 7, Jesus enters a town and sees that a young man is carried out on his deathbed. And he looks at the grieving mother and he has compassion for her. Because this mother, without her son, is going to be hard-pressed to survive. I mean, in this patriarchal culture, how's she going to live? So Jesus brings the boy back to life. You see, my friends, back in the early church, before the followers of Jesus were called Christian, they were called people of the way. Why? Because they lived differently. There was some kind of strange way about them. A way that embodied relentless and persistent care and empathy. They were quick to forgive, right? They were quick to show mercy, to give of themselves for their neighbors who were in need. And the world thought it was ridiculous. I mean, it looked like weakness, right? This self-sacrificing love was the path to nowhere. But here's the thing. For Christians, what separates us from the divisive and destructive ways of the world that we see on display all around us in our nation and throughout the world today, what separates us is compassion and empathy. It is the way of Jesus. Compassion undergirds Jesus' ministry. I mean, time and time again, he chooses to act out of compassion. He doesn't seek to manipulate or dominate others or to force others to his way of life. He doesn't use violence, doesn't shame or put down. He simply lives this self-sacrificial way of being. I think too often we assume compassion is simply an emotional response. But compassion really and truly is what? It's a choice. I mean, sure, emotions come into play, absolutely. How could they not? We've all experienced sympathy for people. But Jesus didn't just sympathize with people. Sympathy, that acknowledges someone else's struggles and pain, but it does it from a distance. Compassion, on the other hand, moves to put ourselves in the place or situation of another person, to empathize with them. And empathy, that requires learning and listening, because we have to know and understand another person's story. It means moving towards relationship, not just acknowledging existence with some modicum of apathetic care. You see, empathy is love in action for another person. It values their story, their humanity, their image of godness. They are worthy of our love, respect, dignity, and care. Living out the greatest commandments, loving God and neighbor, is played out not in dogma and doctrine, but through compassion and empathy and cross-bearing. I mean, really and truly, that's our superpower as Christians. That's what church should look like from the outsider. So maybe the very thing that's being criticized as weak and destructive in today's world is the very thing that we need a lot more of.